all. So my name is MJ Ubando. I'm an English teacher here at the Washoe County School District. Currently I teach at Sparks, and I want to welcome you to what I'm calling the teacher table. This is going to be kind of what I hope to be a first of many discussions, conversations, broadening of the issues that are affecting educators right now, specifically educators in Nevada. This is going to be put on by members of Empower Nevada Teachers, of which one of I am. I joined Empower Nevada Teachers over the summer. Just 2020, I think, has brought a lot of things into play, but more than anything, it made me really reflect on my role as an educator and what are some of the larger issues that we need to look at, not just because of COVID, but I think things that started before COVID and now are kind of broadening out. So what we're hoping for this podcast is really just to bring teachers to the table. We often complain that we don't really get a seat to talk about our issues. So we're hoping this platform serves as a way for us to discuss these things, especially as we were trying to create change and movement in our district and in districts across Nevada. So I thought one of the best ways to start this off was just to talk a little bit about Empower Nevada Teachers. If you've never heard of the group, or if you're new to the group and you're not quite sure what they're about. So with me today are members of the Empower Nevada Teachers Board, and they're going to kind of talk about the history of ENT, how it came to fruition, and then also what their goals and kind of visions are moving towards the future. So if you guys want to start by just kind of introducing yourself, I can call names out so that's easier, but I guess we'll just start with the head honcho. Calen?
Thank you. My name is Calen Evans. I founded and currently the president of Empower Nevada Teachers. I work, I'm the STEM coordinator over at Lemelson STEM Academy here in Washoe County.
And I'll just go in order. Kristen?
I'm Kristen De Haan, and I'm the secretary in ENT, and I'm a special education teacher at Florence Drake Elementary School.
Amy?
My name is Amy Gonzales. I am the communications director on the board, and I work at Matter Academy of Northern Nevada. I'm the instructional coach there.
And I'm hoping I say this right, Janine?
Yes, Janine Luciani. I actually just retired last year after 25 years with Washoe County School District. But I started working with Calen on this and just couldn't stop. So I have a child in the system. So.
And last but definitely not least, Mario?
Hi, I'm Mario Fitzpatrick. I teach social studies at McQueen High School, and I am on the government relations side of Empower Nevada Teachers. And I just want to say thank you to MJ for putting this together and helping us share our vision for education in Nevada.
Thanks. I will say one of the reasons why I joined Empower Nevada Teachers over the summer was, and Amy we were just talking about this and she said it so well, I was angry and frustrated and tired about certain situations, but I didn't know what to do about it. I also didn't know that there was an entire community of teachers that felt the same way. So I just want to say kind of publicly that in many ways, especially with COVID, but just being a teacher in the district and being a teacher in general, this group kind of saved me from just kind of spiraling out, just finding a community of people that were trying to fight for the same things, and to know that you're not crazy, that the things that you're going through are similar, has been really kind of transformative for me. So thank you to you guys for the work that you've done, which I want to get right into. Calen, if you want to describe a little bit, I think most people when they see Empower Nevada Teachers, they see you. And so I really wanted to bring about that there's so many other people behind this. But if you wanted to start kind of just talking about the history of ENT, how it got started and what your vision was for it originally.
Yeah, thank you. And that's always something that's been conscious with us in terms of developing a board and understanding that there are so many educators who have been a part of this very early on from the very beginning, helping drive this, and a lot of their work, behind the scenes. Being kind of the spokesperson, a lot of times my face is out there and my voice is out there, but none of this could even be close to possible without so many, especially with the people that are on here with us and the rest of our board and many of our ambassadors and the impact that they have been able to have pushing this forward. And even in the short term, some people such as yourself who have been able to help, be an extra spark and push this thing. Hey guys, hi, sorry. Hey, I need you to go. All right, you okay?
Yeah.
I know, I gotta finish this. I love you, okay? Can you close the door for me? Thanks, baby. Sorry, that was one of my children.
My favorite part about Zoom meetings with you is that your kids always interrupt at one point.
You're always
adorable, so you're fine.
And they won't, the thing is if I lock it, they start pounding on it. So it's better just to let them come in real quick and then just say, okay, hey, and then go about your, but they won't look for me unless I'm on a Zoom meeting. They don't care. They're like, but then they sense that I'm doing something. So yes, so Empowered Nevada Teachers, really the idea for it really happened organically, but it sparked after the 2018 legislative session. And the same way with you all, I was so let down by that session. I felt that, you had a party coming into power in terms of like, having almost a super majority in the legislate, and looking at Democrats as kind of being more the party of education. I felt that we're in an economic boom at the time. Education is going to be taken care of now, right? The can has been kicked down the road for so long. And then we left that legislative session with nothing really, right? There was no substantial addresses to education. And I saw so many of my colleagues and just in the hallways and listening to them talk about, basically being on the verge of quitting and just feeling like, what, this isn't something that I want to do anymore. And when you work with educators, that the vast majority of them are just such talented, passionate, caring individuals. And to see people and to hear people like that feeling so deflated and so let down by the system, and that's really what it is, right? They're just feeling let down by the people who have control and who have power. I felt like we just had to do something. And I heard so many people talking so negatively that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something, right? Like we had to do something. So we needed to get people active and start making people aware of the issues that were going on. And so really it started off as just a Facebook page, right? Like it was just something to like provide a platform for educators to come together and to share issues and to start, again, bringing awareness. And through that, many of the people on the screen, as you started to see that there was really this, all of us feeling the same way, and a feeling that the current structure that we had in place in Washoe County and across the state, that there just wasn't enough activism, there wasn't enough people like really providing a voice. And so we started having meetings and people started coming to these meetings and getting very impassioned and emboldened. And, we started with, I think the very first event we put on was out at Stead Elementary School with Janine. She reached out and was like, the Facebook page is on. She said, hey, we're going to have a protest on the street, and I'm getting teachers together and we're going to get signs and we're going to hold them up. And this was, and I think we had, I don't know, maybe how many people, Janine, at that first one?
10 to 12 maybe.
And it was myself and another person that I work with, and then some members from her staff, and we were just out on the street holding up signs, right? And then, and trying to get people to see that it was just this snowball effect, right? That if we just get a couple people active and then a couple more and people started seeing educators being active and finding their voice and really empowering their voice, that we could do something. And then other educators started getting on board, and then it was like, hey, we got something here, right? And then so it happened really organically, which led to a lot of troubles as we grew and as we kind of found our footing and found our identity of who we are. But in a lot of ways it was a good thing, because it allowed the vision of what ENT to be built by the people who want to get involved. It wasn't something that we said, okay, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. We had an idea, but it was everybody getting involved and kind of bringing in their own expertise and insight that we were able to really grow it. And so I think, at first we didn't really have, a core group of people, but it just, after months of getting more and more involved, people felt like it really resonated with them. And we just jumped off and have been going hard ever since. And it feels like it's been a short time, but it also feels like it's been a long time because of all the work and all the time put in. But I think, the rest of the board can kind of talk about a little bit more, but that's kind of where the idea was, just to help. Felt like we had to do something to try to help us out.
And I think that's one of the special things about Empowering Nevada Teachers is that it's so organic and that it is teacher-led. We're talking about teacher table and bringing people together. But I love that almost everybody that's on the board is a teacher, has been a teacher, which you don't often see in conversations with education, which doesn't make any sense to me. So the next question that, Calen kind of gave us this framework of how ENT started, but to the rest of the board members, I kind of want to know, and anybody can go in whatever order that you'd like, just to explain kind of like what brought you to the table. What did you see? Did you see a post? Did you notice something? Did you talk to Calen? Have you been there from the ground up, or when did you start, and what brought you to ENT, now being board members for this organization?
Is it okay if I go? So I heard about the Facebook group from some colleagues of mine. I'm not a Facebook person, so it wasn't something that I would have seen myself. And they brought them to my attention. I started looking at it, and when we were reading about everything that was going on, it really kind of started out as complaining, really is what it was. Everyone kind of complaining about the things going on in the world. And that's just when finally we were invited to a meeting. My first thought was, who is this and why is it just like a blank face? So my biggest thing was, let's find out who's behind this before I give it any validity. And then when we were invited to go to the first couple meetings, I think I made it to the second public meeting. Calen, correct me if I'm wrong, but so we went in, and that's when I met Calen, and he kind of told us what he was feeling, and then it just, from there it was like I was all in, and let's just see what we can do, because I had been going to rallies over the years. I'd been pulling teeth trying to get colleagues to go with me, and every time I was at these rallies, same people every single time. It's just the same little core group of people that would be there. And after this Facebook group had started, I was sure that May rally in Carson was going to be gigantic. And you get there, and there were still core people, another little group of a County Without Teachers group with shirts on. Okay, there's this new group. Okay, that's kind of that's the first time I'd ever even seen anybody within the group. And it was after that I went to the meetings, and we just started to realize that we needed to work together with not just Empowering Nevada Teachers, but the unions and the district. So that's kind of how I started. And I care that I retired. This is important. This is super important. I had always planned to retire after 25 years. 7 years ago, I set my goal, but this is important, and it's important for our community. So here I am.
And just real quick to kind of, she mentioned a couple of things that viewers might not. So when the group first started, it wasn't under my Calen Evans profile. I created an avatar, basically. It was just a little picture of a question mark head. People probably remember it, but it was just Washoe County Teacher was the name. And the reason that I did that was because I really didn't want the group to be about me. I didn't want people to look at that and immediately assume really, I wanted it to say like Washoe County Teacher. At the time, we were starting with just in Washoe County, I wanted everybody to see themselves as Washoe County Teacher, right? So I wanted it to be, as people came in, to see themselves as, this isn't about one person driving this, that this is a collective effort. And so, that was a very conscious, it wasn't about being afraid of, because we were bringing up issues that a lot of people, especially given our old regime in Washoe County with Tracy Davis and the way that things were handled, there was so much fear in the district. It was overwhelming. When I started, I can't tell you how many messages I received people just terrified to be even in the platform, not only to say anything, they were just scared that their principal might see them. And we were bringing up legitimate issues that we felt in our district that needed to be addressed. And at that time, nobody was saying anything because of fear of retribution. So I didn't start it because of the fear. I just didn't want it to be associated with me. But then people started really kind of pushing it and saying, well, who is this? Who is this? Like, you know, like they didn't feel, again, comfortable, I guess, getting behind this sort of, you know, fictitious character. They needed a person. And that's what Janine was saying. She was like, well, I wanted to go see who this was. It was because nobody really knew who was really driving this or who had started it. And then we were a county without teachers was the first name, because we felt that it was really like, at the time, it was going into we were in the legislative session, and we felt like we need people to understand that if we don't change things quickly, we could be a county without, like, that's not like it's really getting that bad for educators, that educators are leaving this profession in droves. And so we were a county without teachers. And then once legislative session ended and the dust settled, and we were kind of looking at each other, really, you know, in a lot of ways feeling defeated by the fact that legislators had done what they did, we thought, okay, we need a more focused, empowered name and vision. We need it to be more inclusive. You know, we don't need it to, you know, counting without teachers is quite dire. So we thought that we needed a little bit of a rebranding. And so we spent months and months really rebranding and refocusing. So that, just to kind of go off of what Janine was saying.
And just for the viewers, can you, and I know you said the dates, could you kind of wrap around kind of from a county without teachers or those initial protests and to the point that you became empowered about teachers? What was that kind of like time frame? What year are we? What month are we?
So 2018, the session, I think the group, so the group got launched on, it was Mother's Day. So Mother's Day was the actual, I was eating with my mom, and, you know, and I had basically my sister-in-law at the time who was there, and she's a teacher. And I said, had no idea about Facebook groups. And I said, hey, we need to do something. I need you to help me start this. So we launched the group like that day, and then put out a couple posts, facts about, you know, Washoe County School District that we felt were important for teachers. And then from that all the way through the legislative session, we were a county without teachers, which is, I think it ends like end of April, right? Was about the end of 2018. And then it took us until maybe, I want to say July or August of 2018 to kind of take on the Empower Nevada teachers and the branding. It took us about 3 or 4 months working with some branding people. That was what was great, is people started reaching out to us saying, we believe in your guys' mission. Do you need help with branding? We believe in your mission. Do you need help building a website? We believe in your mission. We'd like to set up your nonprofit status and do your taxes and all these people were reaching out wanting to do things for free, just saying, we believe in the mission that you guys are, what you're trying to accomplish. How can we help? And so we had a teacher whose husband owned his own marketing firm, and reached out and said, hey, I'd like to, sit down with you and talk about your branding and your logo and the title of the group, and really helped us kind of develop more clear ideas with that. And then, so I would say probably August or September of 2018 is when the actual group does that sound about right?
I'm trying to remember, when was the October? Was it October 2019 that we had our big?
Oh yeah, that first one. Yeah. So that was October 20.
So we're talking a year really in the making to get there.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah.
so amazing.
And that's the thing is, again, it was, it was good in a lot of ways because it was organic, but you're really building the plane as you're flying it, right? Like they say, like what we're doing a lot with some of our reopening, it's just kind of seeing like exactly what is this? Like, what could it become? And, and it took time to find people that were really invested and wanted to put in this work, and kind of finding, like even our board as a whole, our board is very new. We had what we called our action team, but it was a group of just really invested educators, right? It was a large group of ones that like would help with the day-to-day, but having clear roles and clear responsibilities and like our bylaws and all these sort of things that had to kind of get developed as we go, because none of us had any, you know, some of us had some experience with nonprofits, but, you know, myself and the majority of us, we're just, and I want to say like, we're just teachers. We were just teachers in the classroom who wanted to do something. No one had experience with how to build a nonprofit or how to create a statewide kind of grassroots movement for education. You know, like activism and grassroots organizing were things that were very new to all of us that we're trying to develop as we go. So it took some time to kind of find the direction we're at now. I think did I answer that question?
Yeah.
A little bit. About those dates get all mixed up, I guess.
And I think it leads into like the later question and just about how you guys grew, but kind of going to the rest of the board, you know, it's crazy how it started. And once again, Janine, thank you for your response. How did the rest of you guys get involved? Was it all from the ground up, or did you kind of come in later? And again, anybody can go at any order.
I'll jump in next. I guess I was a little bit later in the process. I came across the group, I guess, on Facebook, and there was kind of an open call for a meeting at one of the local establishments over the summer last year, 2019. And I was honestly pretty skeptical going into it. You know, I was like, what is this group of teachers trying to do? You know, I kind of heard these things from some of our local organizations trying to push for more funding for education pretty much the whole 15 years I've been a teacher. So I kind of thought, you know, what's going to be different? But I was curious. And so I went and I listened to some conversations, and it was pretty clear that this group of people was looking to tackle this issue a little bit different than maybe what I was used to hearing from other organizations locally. And so I thought, you know, what harm does it take, you know, for me to get involved in this process? But I think really what's inspired me to get on board with this is a couple of important formative experiences, I guess, if you will, over my lifetime. One, I was born in Reno. I've lived here my whole life. You know, I've gone through the Washoe County school district system. And unfortunately, as a student going through there, when I got to college, even at UNR, it was clear that I was, you know, I wasn't a great student, but I wasn't a terrible student, but I was definitely lacking some skills that I needed in order to be, you know, a college level student. And after going through college and getting into teaching, I've taught at two high schools, Hug High School and McQueen High School, and you know, two kind of different ends of the socioeconomic spectrum. But I've noticed that working both of those schools that, you know, there's a lack of, you know, quality experiences that students are getting no matter what school you go to. And that's stuck with me too. But probably when I really started thinking about funding for education was about 5 or 6 years ago. The Reno Gazette-Journal published a study that they had done about the success of our students in college. And the one that really sticks out to me probably most is about 1 in every 2 of our National Merit Scholars, or I'm sorry, not our National Merit Scholars, our Millennium Scholars, you know, the top students in the state, were having to take remedial courses in college. And that's something I actually still talk about at parent night, even to this day. And it really showed me that there's a breakdown in our education system somewhere if our brightest and best students in the state are having to retake, you know, below college level classes when they get to college. And part of the reason why I think that that's happening is that we're not putting the resources in, and we're not keeping the good teachers that we get long enough. And then something else I think that really inspired me to get involved in this group was that about 2 or 3 years ago, I started to kind of feel that burnout myself. And, you know, for the first time in my career, I started to question, you know, is this something I can do for another 15, 20 years? And I really didn't like that feeling because I love what I do. I think, you know, what I do is really important, and I love working with kids. But it became really hard to sustain the level of work that I was putting in. And part of that, I think, is these large class loads of students that we have, especially at the secondary level. Sometimes we have upwards of 200 students in a year. And, when you think about grading and providing feedback to students so that they can get better at what they do, like that becomes really time consuming on your own time, let alone, the limited amount of free time we have at work to accomplish those things. And so I realized that if we just keep doing what we're doing in the state of Nevada, lots of teachers aren't going to make it. And lots of teachers already aren't making it, and they're leaving the profession because it is a hard job. And, it doesn't have to be that way. But for whatever reason, the state over the decades have chosen that is our path. And I was refreshed to hear when I went to this meeting initially that there were a group of people who said, no more. There shouldn't be, this shouldn't be the process for teachers and students in our state any longer. And then I think the last thing that I want to say is that, we just in my adult lifetime, we've seen 3 significant economic collapses, one after 9/11, one in the Great Recession, and then of course coronavirus. And Nevada typically gets hit harder than almost any other state in the nation when those things happen. And I think it just goes to show you that the more intelligent, critical thinking students that we can produce in our state, the better place that they are going to be put in their adult lives to be responsive to issues like that. And I think it's on not just the teachers, but everybody in the state of Nevada to say we need to do better for the educational and the economic health of our state for the near future and the long-term future as well.
That was a great response. And I think it summarized, what ENT is, but also what I hope this podcast becomes, just addressing so many issues that I think we kind of claim as normal. And then COVID kind of brought to life a lot of those things. I too am a product of Washoe County School District, and you kind of grow up and just think that this is the way it is. And then you talk to other teachers and you're like, no, that there are things that we could change. And that's kind of incredible and sad, but also motivating. Thanks, Mario. Next, anybody?
I'll go. So I can't remember exactly when I joined Empower Nevada Teachers. I do remember going to the legislature and seeing the county without teachers, and I have a sticker somewhere that people were handing out from that. I have been an activist for a really long time, and like in high school, in college, and then I got complacent for a while, had kids, and then 2016 hit, and I got real active in every way I could think of. My whole family did. So, and I come from a lot of teachers in my family, so I have known the struggle even before I got into it. And so, going to the legislature and seeing that there were a group of people, I felt like I was surprised by how many people were there that May that we went, because I'd been to so many things where there were very few people at all. So it's growing slowly, and it was really hard in April when we weren't able to have our big march and rally that we were all prepared for, because I think we had built so much and gotten a lot of people, the community, other teachers, families really involved and ready for this event in April. And then, March happened. And so we had to shift how we were getting the word out and how we were helping. And I think I've totally lost track of the question, but anyway, it's just really important that we come together, because really and truly, and I have said this for years, we really are better together. And when we work together, we can actually make change happen.
Lovely, love it. And last but not least, Amy.
I'm the newest to the group, really. And I said it earlier, I got real mad. I got real mad and real tired as a teacher. And I lurked. I lurked on the Empower Nevada Teachers. I lurked on the Washoe or County Without Teachers pages. And then I started posting things on my personal feed and just kind of saying some things. And then Cheryl, who was a big part of this back in the summer, she texted me and said, hey, come to this meeting. I think you should come. So then I went, and then I all of a sudden was in charge of the website, and here I am. So it definitely has been a journey and an adventure, and I'm looking forward to where we're headed.
So that kind of, you addressed some of these questions already, Calen, and I guess the response to this, but I kind of want to know, again, it was only 2 years, right? Like 2018 legislators when this kind of kicked off. So it's now 2020. And for this group to start where it was, where there was like a handful of teachers showing up, and now to this kind of huge, and I know you guys just recently got your nonprofit status. So I mean, I'm curious to know, what were some of the things you just said, Amy, it's been an adventure. Like, what were some of those things that you learned in building this coalition of people to talk about education? And what are some growing pains, but also some things that have been kind of lovely about the experience? And again, anybody can address this question.
One of the things that I would say is helping people understand that you can start small. If you are brand new to speaking out or to being an activist, or even wanting to call it an activist, you can just start by writing a letter. You can start by going to the board meetings. You don't have to actually speak at the board meetings, and reaching out to friends and colleagues who are in different districts, because this is Empower Nevada teachers. It's not just Empower Washoe County School District teachers. So we really want to get all of Nevada working together, and it can just be those small actions that then empower you to go, oh, okay, I've gone to the board meeting, I've seen these people speak, I think I can speak to something. This is really important to me. I can speak about this. And then once you do that, maybe you're calling your legislators, and then continuing to write and talk to other people, and really working on growing it that way, so that people understand what it is to be part of this these different things that we're trying to do to make everything better for our students and for teachers and for everybody that touches the education system.
Just to correct the record too, I think that a lot of what we're talking about actually happened last year in 2019, because that would have been the last legislative session, since they meet on the odd numbered years. So I just wanted to clear that.
Okay, so then, oh man, that was bad. Okay, so then actually,
so we've done almost all this work within just a year.
So yeah, because the session was 2019. Okay. Yep. So actually, take a whole year away from that. So the session of 2019, because this session will be 2021 when it actually starts. That makes sense. Okay. So this is all about a year worth of work. So
way longer.
It was 2019. Yeah. Oh man, it feels like I feel jaded on some of these things. But so 2019, it would have been, what's Mother's Day? Is in April?
May.
Okay, May. So then it would have got basically right around that whole time. And so you're right, a year, man.
End of May is when that rally in Carson was. And so it was just a couple of weeks after your website.
So 2019, and then so the rebranding would have been again like July, August of 2019. And then we basically, from that point in a year, built this in our board and our nonprofit. And so it's been, thanks for clarifying that, Mario.
Yeah, not a problem. Just to answer MJ's question, though, I think one of the things that's been really inspiring in this experience, other than getting teachers together, which I knew there are a lot of teachers who felt the same way I did, is seeing the response of the greater community. When we really seriously started getting to work on what we wanted to accomplish, we reached out to a lot of businesses, and it was pretty awesome to see how many people were willing to not only put our sticker up in their window of their establishment, but just listening to the conversations in our group of the conversations they were having with business leaders in our community, and how supportive they were of what we were trying to do. I thought that was a really great message to hear, that this wasn't just a teacher thing. This is really a community thing. And so when we heard what people were saying about how important education is and how important they saw the work we were doing is, it was really inspiring to me.
Anybody else kind of want to talk about just the growth? And then now it's more incredible, right? Thank you for clarifying that, Mario. From 2000, so you did all of this work, started with a tiny group of people to now. Just, what was that experience like? And what were some of the struggles too? I think of just trying to figure out how to do this.
So many learning experiences. So many. I mean, I think, and it's what's challenging outside of all of the factors of trying to do something, tackling something as big as systemic changes to public education, right? This is like public education, and this is deep. Like the lack of educational support and really the culture of education in Nevada runs really deep, right? Like, and so I think it's much, in my opinion, the educational issues we have go far beyond, which party is in power, or, who, that it's more built into the fabric of how Nevada focuses on education, whether that's the fact that, industries traditionally within Nevada that really Nevada was built on, the emphasis on higher education and sort of these sort of things wasn't as much of a priority. So we have this kind of culture of like, and we've talked, people have mentioned where we always, like, education's just always been this way, right? And then when something's always been this way, it's hard to know that there are other places that are doing it differently. And if you went to school here, like myself too, I'm a product of this, and I've only taught in Washoe County, you kind of think like, oh, this is just how teaching is. And then you talk to other teachers in other states and they're like, no, that's not how things are, and so it was really eye-opening. But, outside of those pieces, we're all full-time teachers. Like we teach all day long, and we all have families, and we all, and we're trying to do all of this for just because we think it's the right thing to do, right? Like no one gets paid, like no one's making any money off of these things. So every hour that we're spending on this, which is countless hours, we're really just doing it because we feel like we know that education and the impact it can have on our community, right? And so we know that by putting in this effort and helping, empowering other teachers, that we can make a positive impact on not just our profession and our students, but on the places that we live. And so that right there is one of the biggest things, is just trying to balance running a nonprofit and building this movement, and knowing that, time has really always been of the essence, in the sense of, when it first started, it was, okay, we were in session. So 2019, we were trying to organize people when we were Accounting Without Teachers to attend these rallies and attend these events and get active. And then from there, it's like, well, now we only have 2 years until the next session, right? Like, which is coming up. Like, no, we have to get us going right now. And so it's been something that we've really had to continue to go after. There were not days that, or weeks or months that we could say, we're just going to kind of take a break, because it was growing so fast. So that piece, I know probably everyone agrees, it's really difficult to balance all those. And then outside of that, there are so many issues within education. It's really difficult. It's really easy to get pulled in many different directions, because just within education, there's so many issues. And then there's so many socio and cultural issues that can bleed into education as well, because education really is this, it is something that affects every facet of our society. And so we've seen it with, with all of these other issues that we're seeing in society, they bleed into education. And so as a group, it's been very difficult for us to balance finding, okay, these are our clear goals and objectives. How do we focus on this? But there's all these other issues that we also feel are very important, right? There's race issues, and there's other cultural issues, and there's systemic issues that we want to tackle on an individual level. How do we stay focused and stay clear on what we're doing when there's so many different things that we could be getting pulled in? And given that social media and there are so many issues, that there's a lot of negativity. So educators are really burnt out, and people are really frustrated just in life. And then that bleeds itself into trying to build something that's collective. How do we get Republican and Democratic teachers to come together and fight for the same issue when Republicans and Democrats can't get on the same page with anything, right? So there is just the time, but then also trying to uniting issues, right, where we can really stay focused. And it's been something that we still to this day are continuing to try and address, of how do we empower voices, issues that are all important, because all of these issues, whether it's Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ or the reopening with COVID, like, there are people on both sides of these arguments, right? How do we empower voices for educators to make them feel like their voices are heard, while also keeping a united front on the issues of really where we've come in is funding issues, and feeling like if we can address funding, in a lot of ways we can address all of these other issues, right? By empowering voices, we can then go, after we are able to provide funding and resources, we can tackle all of these other issues that people may feel stronger about on an individual level. But we have to start somewhere with some of these kind of more systemic issues. So in my opinion, have been some of the most difficult things, of just balancing the time it takes with also, keeping teachers united. And COVID have affected all of us, right? The society, the world at large. And Kristen kind of hit on it. We were, in Mario too, there was so much, it was building at such a fast pace with involvement of small businesses, and we had PTO groups, and we had entire student bodies, and we had educators from Republicans, Democrats, and everybody was coming together. And then unfortunately, COVID really comes in and takes people's attention. And now it's like, okay, how do we go from there to being able to kind of refocus everybody on the fact that now with COVID, we're going to have even more of these issues that are going to be coming up. And so how do we deal with them? So those are kind of some of the biggest things, in my opinion, that have just roadblocks that we've hit along the way.
I just want to add to that really quick, because I really feel like we were on this trajectory to where we were there. We were there. And it's like in October, when we had our big rally, it was freezing cold that one day. Like, there was just these little things that were in our way. And then we were going to blow up. We were ready to just take the legislature by storm for real. And then a pandemic hit. So, I mean, it took a pandemic to stop, to slow this down, but it's not stopping.
So I think and this kind of goes into later questions I was going to ask too, but you hit it perfectly, Calen, that I think I would imagine it'd be so difficult just with so many different viewpoints, and education is huge. It affects every facet of our society, and the cliche that children are our future, they really are. Whatever we are building now will affect what our life looks like later. And I'm going to direct this question to Amy. Sorry to put you on the spot, but what challenges have you found trying to kind of regulate the message of ENT with so many facets about education and conversations to manage, and how difficult has it become to, you're empowering Nevada teachers and you have all these people that are voicing out their concerns, but as an organization, what do you do to try to direct that and I don't want to say control, but mediate so that everybody feels like they have a place at that table? That's a kind of a heavy-handed question, but just the messaging of ENT.
Great question. And I don't know that we have it answered yet. We have spent so many hours in Zoom meetings, texting each other. Oh, what do you guys think about this? Okay, because over the summer, I will just tell you right now, our Facebook page went down a very black and scary hole of COVID. And as it should have. I mean, we were all freaked out. We all didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if we should go back, how we should go back, in what way. What was the district doing here in Washoe County? What were other districts doing? Nobody really knew. It was all like this big secret. And you felt that on our page. And we struggled. So we made some changes there on the page. Before that, you could just post whatever you wanted and it just posted. So then we went to, you have to be approved. And then that was hard because it can't be just one person in charge of that, because holy cow, that would be all you would do all day is the Facebook page. So we had several of us, and then going back and forth with each other. Okay, well, but what do you think about this? Okay, how do we make this spin it? I don't know if spin's the best word, but how do we make this so that it works towards our goals? So then, COVID absolutely, it didn't cause any of these issues. It just highlighted them in a very big way. It exacerbated these issues that we've already have. And so then we tried to spin it in that way, or make it so that we were kind of like what Calen just said, was there's so many issues in education, and what does it all really come down to? Well, here in Nevada, it comes down to funding, because we're so low. We're not even close to the national average. So when we look at what we've done, and then Dr. McNeil said, we pride ourselves on doing more with less. Well, if we can do what we've done with less, think of what we could do with more, is where I want that to go. So that's kind of, it took forever for us to try and figure out what we were doing and where we were going and how we were going to make this work. And we're still working on that. And we're not going to please everyone. Sorry, guys, if you don't get your post posted, or if we decline it and ask you to do something different, or if we tell you, thank you, we already have like 5 of those. It's just trying to make it so that this page is as empowering as it can be, but not taking it into these wholly different angles and darkness and negativity that it was.
That was the biggest thing. It's like, how do we want to allow everybody to post their voice, right? So how do we allow the discussion of these issues when a lot of these issues are so divisive? What happens is, the way the Facebook algorithms work is whatever post, whatever comment is getting the most traction, that's what pops up on people's feeds whom aren't regularly in the group, right? It'll pop up on their personal feeds. Well, the most divisive topics are the ones that get the most engagement, right? And Facebook knows this. So when you have all these people going back and forth and this and this and this, that's what pops up. So there may be 50 posts of empowerment and positivity and people being engaged and activism and, on all these like things that we're really trying to drive. And then there's one post about the reopening. And then there's so much back and forth on that particular issue. That's what pops up. So people scroll through their feed and they look at it and they go, oh, well, look at all this negativity within the group. Really, it's just 1 out of the 50 that are up there, but that's the one that's popping up. And so it's like, we want people to have their voices and we want their issues, even if we don't personally agree with them, right? Like, it can't be, well, they fall within our personal belief, so we're going to allow it, but we're not going to allow these other ones because we don't personally believe in it. So it's like, okay, here's some clear clear rules that we want to keep it civil and we want to be respectful with each other. But if they fall within this rules, we're going to allow it. So it's like, how do we continue to allow people's voices to be heard while keeping things constructive and keeping things where we disagree on a lot of these other issues, but what we do all agree on is the fact that education is underfunded and under-resourced, and that educators are overworked, and that our students aren't getting aren't being provided with the resources they need. These are the issues we agree on. So how can we still have our differences as educators, which we don't all agree on everything, and we come from different spectrums, but we do agree on this. And so that's always something that we're trying to drive, that common, constructive, unifying theme in a time where our society, right? Like, we're trying to do all of this in a pandemic at a time when our society has never been so split. So it's like, it's already hard enough to try to build a grassroots movement to tackle education. And now it's like, let's do that within a pandemic when we're split as a society. And, educators make up that society, right? We have educators across the spectrum. So it's challenging, to say the least, but it's something that we are going to keep working at because we believe in it so much.
I just wanted to see if anybody else wanted to hop on. And thank you for those answers, because I know, with Facebook groups, it's difficult to, again, you want to have everybody to have a voice and to give them the opportunity, but we've talked a lot about funding, right? So and I think we've also talked about all these things about education that ENT cares about and wants to address, but isn't necessarily able to, because you guys are trying to focus on this thing, right? So what I guess my next question is what is ENT? If somebody if they're watching this video and they don't really know necessarily, and they're trying to figure out, like all of you were before, you're like, what is this thing? Like, who are these people? If you guys had a mission statement, which I think you do, what are the goals? What are the things that you're shooting for right now? Funding obviously is one of them. Would you address any other ones that you're thinking these are our priorities?
You guys want me to answer that one? Mario, you got it?
You're most versed in this topic.
So really, our biggest with funding and resources, where we believe that education in Nevada should be funded at the national average or better. Like that, at the minimum, we should be providing the resources that on average with the rest of the country. We feel like the three main issues within those funding measures that we want to address is attracting and retaining educators, because we have one of the highest teacher turnover rates. And so the ability to keep teachers in the profession and also attract new people to come in, right? And then you look at if that's a huge issue in itself, right? And trying to get people to want to be teachers. So attracting and retaining teachers, and then addressing our class sizes. Nevada has the largest class sizes in the country. So we feel like we have to, and that kind of goes along with attracting and retaining teachers, right? We can have all this money, but if we can't get teachers to stay in the profession and we can't bring new teachers in, then our class sizes will never be addressed. But also, class sizes in itself is an element that leads to teachers leaving the profession, because there's so much more work and stress and added responsibility when we have, class sizes that are 40% larger, and you're dealing with 40% more students and 40% more work and and more stress and all these things. So we feel like those two issues really go along with each other, with attracting and retaining and class sizes. And then, given the situation with the pandemic and where things have gone, we felt that we really need to address mental health issues in our students. There's so much division within society, and there's all these things that our young people are having to deal with outside of just going to school and being educated. So we need to have, counselor caseloads and child psychologist caseloads have to be lowered. We need to have social workers in all schools, not just schools that maybe have lower socioeconomic, but, my wife works at a higher socioeconomic, and every year in her classes, she has students with severe issues in the home. Issues in the home don't have boundaries based on money and how much money they bring in. So we need to have professionals that are trained to deal with these issues so that educators can get back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is teaching. So those are our big goals and issues, but like kind of an overarching concept of Empower Nevada Teachers is exactly that, is to empower teachers to get active. So, when, MJ, when you put on, your event with your, with some of your colleagues and address the reopening, that's exactly what we've always wanted Empower Nevada teachers to do, is to help people feel empowered to get active in whatever that focus is, whether it's funding and resources like we're doing, whether it's addressing LGBTQ or addressing Black Lives Matter issues or equality issues within the district or race issues within the district, whether it's addressing, the reopening issues that they feel, whatever they, teachers feel, the more that teachers are being active and finding their voice, the better off we're all going to be. And teachers, for so long, we have a very apathetic, a lot of times we have a passive voice. We have to find our voice. We have to stick up for ourselves in all areas. We need to fight for each other. We need to fight for our students. We need to be the loudest and most vocal advocates for our profession and for our students, because nobody else is going to do that for us. And so the hope is that when you see teachers being active in one area, and you think that this other part is also really important, that might inspire you to go to the board meeting and to give public comment for the first time, or it might help you, on your personal feed, help educate your friends and family on your social media accounts about some of the issues that are important to you, because you see other teachers and other educators who are in the classroom just like you right now, doing the things that you're doing, being active. We're hoping that empowers people to be active, because again, the more that educators are active in any capacity with any issues that they feel are important, the better off we're going to be as a profession.
Just
Okay,
to
sorry, go ahead, Mario.
I just wanted to piggyback on one of the things that Calen mentioned. That is, I think a lot of times in our profession, we think, oh, next year it's going to be better, or next year it's going to be different. And one of the things for me personally that I started to realize about 2 or 3 years ago is that that's just not true. Like, time isn't going to fix these problems. It takes people to fix these problems. And so the more teachers that we can empower to get involved in the decision-making process, making their voice heard on different issues that they see going on in their classrooms, in their schools, in the district, the better off we're going to be. Because I think just for too much of our time, we've just waited and said, oh, it'll be better next year, or things will change, and they just don't. And so we need people to be the change to make it happen.
And I think also with something that Calen said, with teachers not always feeling empowered or feeling like, what can I do? I can't do much. These are the things that we are all teaching our kids from elementary school to do, to be that change, to find your voice, to do those things. So we need to do that too. We're teaching it. We need to put it in action ourselves. Our students see that, and you can tell from when you go to the board meetings and you have students speaking. Like, that's huge. And I know, like, my kids have spoken at events, and there's a lot of empowerment in that. And so that has helped me as well to be like, okay, if my kids can do it, I need to be able to do it too.
So I think what we can summarize is be the change. Be the change.
So kind of wrapping up and refocusing, I think we've talked a lot about what ENT is. I know that it started kind of in the wake of the legislative session, and I know that a huge drive for ENTs is upcoming legislative session. It's a hard word to say. And so, and again, maybe you've already said this, but coming up into February with this coming, what does ENT want? What are they hoping? You have all these people that are kind of following you. What are you looking to do and accomplish this upcoming session?
Well, go ahead, Mario.
Well, I think one of the things that we definitely need to do is we need to get the attention of our state legislatures. Many of them have been doing this job for a number of years now, and we need to let them know that the status quo is no longer going to fly in the state of Nevada. We need to do something differently when it comes to adequately funding education for our students. And we want to do that, though, by building relationships with them. And really, I think part of the problem that we have at the state level is that I don't think that they really understand the issues that we face when we don't have high quality education and we don't fund it at a quality level. And so I think we need to start building those relationships with them now, before February even, so that we can, you know, get their attention and put that on their radar for February.
Yeah, you know, and in terms of, again, COVID making everybody flexible, same with us, right? We were going into, prior to COVID, we're really looking at addressing educational funding. At this point, educational funding, you know, revenue is going to have to be addressed across the state, right? It's not just education that's going to be crippled by the lack of revenue that the state's able to bring in at this point. But given historically, education's always the first to get cut, and it gets cut the deepest, and those cuts have such a lasting impact, right? If you think of 2008, if you look at inflation, we still haven't recovered in terms of the funding prior to 2008. It's 12 years have gone by, and we're still at the very bottom, towards the very bottom of educational funding here in Nevada. And so, you know, knowing that and seeing that we're facing a legislative session with massive budget cuts, it's like, where do we think that those cuts are going to come from, right? They're going to come from education, and we were already underfunded and under-resourced. And so it's really scary to think about the fact that you're going to go into a session already with a system that's, you know, kind of being kept together by the educators. And then you're going to add more and really deep lasting cuts in these things. And so at this point, our main goal is just to protect education. We need to do everything we can to protect educational funding for where it's at right now. And then putting pressure on lawmakers to start addressing revenue. We have a very archaic revenue system here in Nevada. And if we can address that, then down the road, as the economy starts to come back and we start to see ourselves through this recession, we can actually get back to that national average funding. So really right now, we need to do everything we can to protect education, educational funding, and turn people, and really turn people out and turn educators out and get them active in reaching out to lawmakers and attending events and just making their voices heard and educating their friends and family on the issues that we're facing, because there's going to need to be pressure being put on lawmakers to not do what they've always done. And what they've always done is just, okay, we're going to cut education, and we're going to, you know, address it that way. If that's what they do, it is going, you know, you could cripple education to a point where it can't really bounce back, because if your ship's already, I think of it as like, we've always been bailing water out of Nevada education, right? We're bailing water out all the time just to keep it afloat. And now you're going to put a hole that we can't bail that much water out of, right? You're going to see teachers leave the profession in droves if we start, you know, with hiring freezes, which will increase class sizes, and then we start, you know, pay cuts and pay freezes and furloughs and taking resources out of the classroom. And you're already looking at, man, we're barely getting by in a lot of these situations as it is. What's that going to look like? So it's something that we need educators to know, that we have to get active now, because if we wait and then things get bad and you go, oh man, I'm really pissed off now because things are bad, by then it's too late. And so it's, how do we get people active now, so that we can try to do everything we can to address these before it becomes as big a problem as it could be.
And I think something else that we're working on is definitely education. So educating other educators and educating the community on what has happened. So actually, just in the midst of all of this, texted the board and said, we need to get an infographic on the amount of money that has been taken from education in the last 10 to 15 years, and then compared to the amount of money that's been put into. I think that would be really powerful. And because I don't think people actually know, I don't think they really see that. They hear, oh, education got cut, but they don't see that then that money is not being put back in at some later date. It's not happening. We haven't recovered from 2008. That's unacceptable. And we need people to know that. And so I think going forward into this legislative session is just garnering that support and getting people behind us and with us on the fact that no, education can't be on the cutting block every single time. You need to choose some other places to cut, and that's hard. And I get it. And I get that there's a lot more money in lobbyists and in the legislature in other areas than there is in education. And so we are going to turn that. We will be there. We will be the lobbyists. We will be on the streets, in the sessions if they'll let us. We will be there to remind them that we can't take this anymore. Our students can't handle having 45 kids in their classrooms. It's not acceptable.
That's great. Oh,
And
go ahead, Kristen.
Well, I can't remember if Amy had said this earlier while we were recording this or not, but you know, the doing less with more, we could do so much with more, and we can't do a whole lot with less. Like we are at our point, like we are stretched, so taut that less is not going to work. We need to not have to do more with less.
So kind of tying this up, because I want to make sure that, you know, we give our audience members and then also you guys, you know, your fair time to yourselves. But, and I loved everything that everybody has said so far. In a really quick kind of, and I'd like everybody to answer this last question, a couple of sentences. Overall, as parents, as teachers, as Nevadans, what are your hopes for Nevada education? What does the ideal Nevada education look like to you? And anybody can answer.
Okay, I'll go.
Georgian.
So, I would say it looks like small class sizes. It looks like dedicated, experienced teachers. It looks like a community that supports schools and teachers and students. It is what education should be, and Nevada has been lacking for a very long time. When I started working in Nevada, my classes were 16 kids. I had 16 kids for many years. And when I left in the same grade level, I was up to 27 kids. It is not okay. We need to start standing up for ourselves. We need to start standing up for each other. And we need to stand up for our kids and our future. This is the future of Nevada. It is an education, period.
I'm right there with Janine on that. And I think actually I believe it was when we had the board meeting at Sparks High, and one of the Sparks High students spoke and said, you know, this is the one silver lining of COVID. Because their class sizes are so reduced with the hybrid schedule, she said, my English teacher is able to answer each of our questions. She is able to listen to what we have to say. Because there are fewer students in that classroom, it makes an immensely huge difference to have a smaller class size, to be able to address so many of the things that we need to address as teachers with our students, and to let our students be heard.
I would like our state leaders to start treating teachers and educators as a noble profession that it is, not only with the funding, but just the way that they talk about it. And I want our future teachers to be attracted to this job, and not just, oh, this was my third or fourth career option that, you know, I kind of fell back onto and that's what I'm going to go into. Like, we should have people going into education like they want to be doctors, like they want to be lawyers, because they're just as, if not more important than those professions are. So that's what I would like that's my vision.
I'm going to go with what everyone just said is truly it, that Nevada will step up to the plate and fund us the way we need to be funded so that we can do our jobs.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to be, sorry, Micah. I just want to be proud to be Nevada education. You know, like it's been so bad for so long that it's almost like a joke, right? Like Nevada, no one thinks Nevada and goes high quality education. But why? And that's I don't understand, like, why is Nevada not thought of, or why don't we want to think of Nevada and put ourselves in a position where when you think of Nevada, you think of places like Massachusetts, right? Like, why can't we, why isn't education important like that here? We have such amazing educators in Nevada. They're amazing. They're so talented at what they do, but they are part of a broken system. And it doesn't matter how talented you are when you're working in a system like that. So I ultimately just I want education in Nevada to be something that we hang our hats on as Nevada. Like, you know, that's something that we're known for, is education. It's like, and those two words, high quality educate, you know, or those words, education in Nevada, should be synonymous, and they're not. It's actually the exact opposite. So that's my big thing for the education.
I'm going to address this question too. As a teacher and somebody that grew up in Nevada education, I would like it to feel, I tell my students all the time that I can't care about your education more than you do. And I really want the rest of Nevada to care about education as much as I do and as much as teachers. I think just educators can be the people that see this as a concern. And then I also just want kind of, I think Mario said it beautifully, there's been a lot of, it's sad to see some of the hate that teachers have received in the last few months, especially with concerns about COVID. And, you know, I don't think we need a parade or anything, but I'd like teachers to feel safe and to feel heard and to feel empowered, as we are saying, and that they shouldn't be afraid to want to speak out or address issues, but that they shouldn't feel like they have to, because the system is set up for them to succeed and for not to fail. But anyways, I want to thank all of you guys for being here today and letting me ask you a bunch of random questions. And I want to encourage anybody that's watching, we're hoping to do more of these, to tell us the issues that you want to hear people talk about. And if you yourself want to be part of these discussions, to let us know, because I think the more that we understand these issues and discuss these issues, the more that we're empowering ourselves to speak out on them and hopefully to encourage other people to do the same. So unless anybody else has anything left they want to say. All right.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, MJ, so much for doing this.
Everyone. Okay, so I'm just going to stop recording, but I'll